In this video, we're going to talk about the read method as well as open method that we have in our MySQL session handler. Let's open this file up in the Sublime Text. Let's just collapse all of these comments. Scroll down to the open method. So for the open method, you see the comment on the top. It says open the session, and then we have this string safe path as well as string name. You don't need to do anything here. The only thing you need to do here, because safe path and name can be combined together and used with the combination together. All you need to do here, just come down here and just return true. So if I say return true, that's the only thing you need to do. That's simple, and the other two are a little bit more complicated. So in the read method, we need to do few stuff, and we're going to talk about write, close, destroy, and garbage collect in the later upcoming videos. For the read method, if you open up your exercise file right here, in video 11, we have helpers as well as read function. So for the read, what I meant was the read method. So for the read method, you just want to select all of this, highlight all of this, and just come down here and paste it right here. Let me just indent this a little bit better. So let me grab all of these stuff and come here and then indent a little bit. Yeah, so this is much better now. So for now, maybe we can just indent a little bit more. No, that's all right. Yeah, okay. You can see that we have a try as well as catch block. Don't get confused. Don't intimidate yourself. And I'm going to explain all of that line by line. So in the try and catch, you can see that we have PDO exception with the event E, as well as if the database in transaction, and then we're going to roll back. So this is one of the important things that you want to go ahead and remember. We are using a transaction because what transaction does is something similar when you go to your bank, and for example, you want to do a transaction. You want to withdraw some money from your friend's account and put it in yourself. Like you want to give check to the bank, and then bank is going to check first to see if the fund exists in your friend's account, and then he's going to send it to your account. So if you do something online, that's called transaction. So for example, your friend said, okay, let's go ahead and withdraw $1,000 and then put it in your account. And if you go ahead and hit the click submit button, and if your friend's account has $999 instead of $1,000, and it's not going to do anything, even though $1 is less than what you actually requested from your friend's account. So that's called transaction, because if transaction doesn't exist, what would have happened was you could withdraw $999, and then your friends, you could borrow all of that money from your friend's account, and not $1,000. What would transaction do? It's going to check all the stages. It's going to check the monies exist in your friend's account, and then it's going to transfer it, and then if everything is done, it's going to give you a notification saying, okay, transaction was successful. That's called transaction. It's going to do all the stages. And what this rollback function does here, if something happened in the middle of the way, it's going to roll back all of that. Maybe internet connection, lost. If you lose the internet connection, or if money is not sufficient, that's called rollback. It's not going to withdraw anything, not even maybe $100 instead of $1,000, and it's going to roll back everything. So that's what transaction is doing right here. So in the try block, we're checking if you're using a transaction. MySQL's default isolation, repeatable read, cause deadlock for different session. We're going to get this class database and execute this. So set transaction isolation level read committed. This is SQL SQL command. And then we are using it to begin this transaction. So begin transaction, and we're going to do the transaction. If you're not doing the transaction, what we're going to do, we're going to unlock the statement, and then we're going to use the function getLog. So what this function is, we have this on our helper. So let's just grab all of this and then copy and then come back here, put it at the end of the functions, and let me just grab all of this and then indent a little bit better. So let's do right like this. So what this getLog has here, and then we have this initialize record. It's a lot of code, but don't worry, we're gonna get to it. So on the top you could see that we have this getLog here, and then the getLog has the session ID, which is getting it from the read parameter right here. So if you scroll down, getLog, we have our statement, prepared statement. So this database prepared, we're preparing select getLog and then a key with a 50, and then bind value, we're going to get the bind value with the session ID binding, and then a statement execute. So we're going to execute a statement, and we're going to release this statement by preparing it again, do release lock. So we're locking right here. Nothing's going to happen. Like you're locking something in the middle of the way, like transaction, what I meant again. And if something in between happens, nothing can happen like in between. Let's say we are locking these two lines in between on the top and bottom, and nothing in the middle of the way can happen because we're locking it. That's what this SQL statement does. So if you don't know SQL, you could just maybe go ahead and stop this video and watch SQL, advanced SQL, MySQL commands. So we're binding a value key and the session ID, and then we are returning the release STMT, which is statements. So that's what this getLog does. So at the end we have so this is gonna check if you're using a transaction or not. If you're using a transaction, it's gonna go ahead and use a transaction, that's why I mentioned you have to use InnoDB. So that's what InnoDB was doing, InnoDB engine. So I'm just gonna leave it like here. Need InnoDB engine for MySQL. And if you don't have the InnoDB, this is gonna do this function getLog. So getLog is gonna do the same thing, and same thing similar as transaction, getting a lock in between, and then it's gonna do this job. This is not the function I wrote. You can find it through Stack Overflow and so on. So this is replacement of transactions, SQL transactions. And then we're writing an SQL command. Select this call expiry, and then this call data from this table, which these are the things that you have attributes on the top. So I told you in the previous video, call expiry, call data, and then call SID. So these are ID, expiry, and data, all the columns that you needed, even though you could go ahead and write them on your own. So instead of this, you could say, okay, expiry. So let's say expiry. You could do this as well, but what we're doing is just using everything on the top, which is a little bit more dynamic, I guess. From this, where this call SID equals this prepared statement, which is we're gonna use it underneath. And then we have this if this use transactions SQL for update. So we're adding, if you're using transactions, you're gonna add this at the end of this statement. So like adding it right here. So why we're not doing this? Because this only works when we're using the transactions. That's why we're doing this. And then don't forget the space right here. Don't remove it, because if you remove it, like you're copying this and then pasting it right here, this is not going to be readable by SQL. You need a space between. You either need space right here or right here. Either one is going to work. And then we are selecting a statement, preparing the SQL. So this is how you prepare the statement. You're selecting the bind param, SID, and the session ID, and then you're going to execute this session. And then you have the result. So select SMTP fetch. So we're going to fetch a stock using the fetch stock for PDO. And then if the result was successful, or what this is just exactly the same thing as having this result successful, which is on the top. Then we're going to have this result cool expiry, checking to see if the expiry is less than our current time, and then return an empty string if the data is out of date. So if it's less than time, which means it's out of date, we're going to return nothing, like return session empty, something like empty ID. Otherwise, or else, you could add else right here, but if you don't, it's going to run it faster. So we have this results and then this column data. So what column data was, again on the top, is our data. So this is our data, whatever you're storing in the data. If you don't store the data, these goals are not necessary. And then we will get this for only if there is no result, which means the session hasn't yet been registered in the database. So if using the transaction again, we are initializing a record. This is one of the other methods that I wrote. We're gonna check in a moment. And then if not using a transaction again, we're gonna return nothing. Or you could add something like else right here and then add it on the top. Else, like this. You could maybe grab this and then paste it right here. But this is not really necessary, since you just, you don't need else statement all the time. Make sure you read all of these comments, and then our catch block that I already explained, and then we're going to throw an exception on the top. So let's just check the next thing, which is initialize record. So for our initialize record, we have PDO statement select STMT, or our statement on the top. You can check this. If you're using a transaction, we have to initialize the record. That's one of the things that you need for transactions. And then come down here again. You can see we have our try and catch. Catch is most of the things in the catch, which is these, are not really necessary. You could put it in the comment, but I made it to make it error more readable. You just need all of these 3 lines, and that we had actually previous method right on the top right here. These are the same thing, rollbacking, because we're using the transaction. So that's why if something happens, we're going to roll back. So all you need to just have a look is just these 3 few lines that are highlighted. So we're going to we're inserting a data. That's what initialize record does. Insert data into your database. So we are inserting in our table this cool SID and then expiry. You need these parentheses, don't forget that. Values, you could add it on maybe you could add it right here. You need it in space. But I'll add it on the next line to make it more readable. And then we're adding all the ID, expiry, and the data values, SID, expiry, and data. These are the things that you're preparing right here. So we are actually using a prepared statement because it's more safe. And then we're binding a param, SID, session ID. I hope you all know this, because this is something really common when you're using PHP and PDO. You're using a prepared statement. Prepared statement all of them are start with double colon. SID, session ID, and expiry. This expiry PDO param init, so this is gonna change it to int. And then we have our data. If you don't have our data, this is going to be empty. And then we're going to execute the command, and we return nothing. We return empty. And then that's the catch thing. So catch duplicates key errors if the session has already been created. 0 equals you're using a str pause and then check it to see if the code is 23, which means something happened for our the code is 23, which means our retrieve existing session data written by the current connection. Something happened with the connection. So we're going to do this again. We're going to fetch the result, and then we're going to return the result, and then this cool data. And otherwise, we're going to return nothing. That's all you need to do. These are, as I said earlier, these are not necessary, but it's going to make it much readable. These 3, maybe 4 lines are really necessary inside your catch, because it's going to roll back your transaction. And as I said earlier, we're using a transaction right here. So there's a lot of code, about 100 lines of code. You could go ahead and stop the video and type it, but you could actually download the exercise and go ahead and copy it and read all of the comments. I try to explain everything for you. So in the next video, we're going to go ahead and talk about the write method, which is right here.